Brilliant. Good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you very much to Richard for having me here this morning, and it's great to have the opportunity to come and share my story with you all. And I'm sure the first thing you will have noticed about me is that I'm physically disabled. And having a disability, it can get me into some quite amusing situations sometimes. And when I was 17, I was at sixth form at a school near Bristol. And the school, although it was a mainstream school, they had a number of disabled people there as well. So they had some staff there, especially to help out these disabled people. And one of these members of staff came up to me one day saying, "We've received something through the post which you might be interested in. It's regional trials for disabled athletics, basically for the southwest of England. And would you like to have a go?" And I thought to myself, I've never raced disabled people before. This could be quite good fun. So she said the event was taking place down in Yeovil, which from my house at the time was about an hour and a half's drive. And she said it's taking place in just over 3 weeks' time. So if you want to enter, you need to get your entry in pretty quickly. And so I took the forms home and I thought to myself, I'm not very quick, but I can keep going. So I thought, well, I'll enter the 1,500 meters. And then I thought, if I'm going all the way down to Yeovil, what's the point in doing one race? I might as well enter a second race too. So I entered the 400 meters as well. Now you have to bear in mind that at that time, I'd never run 1,500 meters before. I'd walked the distance, but I'd never run it. But I thought, it'll be fine. I can train for it. I've got quite good endurance. And so I trained for the 1,500 meters over those 3 weeks. And I gradually built up the distance, and I ran the 1,500 meters twice in practice. And then it was the day of the event, and I arrived in Yeovil, and my name was called for the starting line for the 1,500 meters. And I thought it was going to be like the Paralympics, where they put you into categories according to your disability. No. There were three of us. There was me, there was someone who I think had cerebral palsy, and the other man who was partially sighted. He could run just like anyone else, just couldn't see so well where he was going. And I thought, this is going to go horribly wrong. Well, anyway, the race got underway, and I was soon well behind the other two, and it suddenly occurred to me the partially sighted man is going to lap me. Is he going to see me? Fortunately, he ran round me. And then the cerebral palsy man lapped me, and then the partially sighted man lapped me again. And I ended up having to run the whole last lap all on my own. And then I was coming onto the final bend with 200 meters to go, and I heard an announcement over the sound system, not knowing the schedule for the day. "Can Bart Gee please come to the starting line for the 400 meters? And I was thinking, I'm on my way. And do you know what was wrong with the winner of the 400 meters? He was deaf. My only chance was that he couldn't hear the gun. I thought, this isn't very fair. I've just ran the best part of a mile with my disability, and that was his first race. And the other funny thing about that race was there were people who came in wheelchairs. I imagine probably to rest their legs, and they all got out their wheelchairs, they all ran around and beat me, and they all got back in their wheelchairs again. So anyway, that's one of many stories that I could share with you. But anyway, on to my actual testimony. So when I was 5 years old, I remember sitting in the car with Mum one day. We were out, and Dad and my brother got out the car, and I was just sitting in the car with Mum. And I said to Mum, I want to become a Christian. How do I become a Christian? Because even with my limited understanding at that age, I had no doubt whatsoever about God's existence. And so Mum, first of all, explained to me the scripture from John 3:16, which I think will be up on screen in just a minute. And it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life." And Mum said I needed to pray and ask Jesus into my heart. And that's when I made my own personal decision. I invited Jesus into my heart and to be central in my life. Now, I've had the question asked in the past, if God is real, if God is a loving God, why hasn't he healed me of my disability? And I do believe that God can heal people, but I also believe that God can use people. through the difficulty of their situation, so that his works can be displayed and for his glory to shine through that person. And another scripture I want to read is 2 Corinthians 12, verse 8 to 10, which says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So I was born severely disabled with a rare condition called arthrogryposis. And arthrogryposis, it means that I've got weak muscles and stiff joints. And people with my disability are affected in different ways. So, for example, one person might be affected in just their hands or their arms. Other people, it may affect maybe their feet or their legs. And other people like me, it affects their whole body. And each person with my disability is uniquely affected as to how severe it is for them, how bad it is for them. And when I was born, doctors told my parents that I would never walk and that I may never have the strength to be able to sit up independently. And I was just given no hope to be able to do anything for myself. Now, I was brought up in a Christian family. And when I was a baby, the pastor of our church prophesied to my parents, saying that little by little, that I would be able to do more and more new things that will amaze people. And he prayed for 2 things specifically. And the first thing was that one day that I'd be physically able to walk down the aisle of the church, which is obviously different from what the doctors were saying. They said I would never walk and may never ever sit up on my own without help. Well, I was able to sit up myself at quite a young age, and to get around, I would just shuffle across the floor to wherever I wanted to go. But when I was 3 years old, I used to go to physiotherapy sessions very regularly at the Bristol Children's Hospital. And there was this one session in particular that I remember clearly to this day, because my physiotherapist propped me up against the wall. Just imagine I'm leaning against the wall now. And she let go of me and she said to me, I want to see if you can start walking. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And I remember feeling very frustrated because I just couldn't move away from the wall. And at the time, I couldn't really understand why, because other children my age, they were up on their feet and running around. And I thought, well, why can't I do that? Because at that age, I didn't really understand what my disability meant to me. But sometime after that, I was around 3.5 years old. And there was one night when Mum carried me up the stairs to go to bed. And again, this is something I remember very clearly, because as we were going up the stairs, I just had this thought that I might be able to start walking. And so I said to Mum, I think I might be able to start walking now. Can I try? And so in the same way as my physiotherapist propped me up against the wall, Mum propped me up against the wall. And she let go of me. And I was able to take 1, 2, 3 steps. And then I fell down. I'm not going to fall down now. It'll take me too long to get back up again. We tried it again. And I took 1, 2, 3 steps. And then I fell down. Now, someone who is physically disabled like me is often referred to as having physical difficulties. And if you take the word difficult, are there any other words which have a similar meaning? And you may think of the word hard, or maybe the word challenging. Now, if you take these words, difficult, hard, and challenging, is there a word that sums these words up? And for me, that word is possible. Difficult means possible. Hard means possible. Challenging means possible. So for me, it was quite significant that I could start by taking 3 steps. Because if you imagine that my first step, I was leaning against the wall, but then I was able to take 2 more steps, 1 on each foot, unaided before falling down, which meant that both legs were strong enough to take me, which meant for me that walking would be really difficult for me. It was going to be a real challenge, but I still knew it would be possible. And so from then on, it was a matter of could I do a little bit more each day. And I remember the day after taking my first steps, I'd be downstairs at home, and my parents would prop me up against the wall, and I'd have to try and make it to the other side of the room. And I'd get part way across, and I'd fall down, and my parents would pick me up, and I'd get a bit further, and I'd fall down again, and my parents would pick me up again, and I eventually made it to the other side of the room. And then I was gradually able to do more each day until I was able to walk in my own way, which I realized looks very different from the way most people walk. But I was able to walk without thinking about what I was doing. And for me, that was great because it meant I had that freedom. I had that independence, and I didn't have to rely on anyone else to help me move around. So I then went to school, and my parents decided it was best for me just to try and go to like a sort of mainstream school rather than a special needs school, just so that I could try and lead as normal life as possible. And I would go out with my friends at break time, and I'd basically go out to the playground, and I didn't want to watch them play sport. I just didn't want to watch from the side. I really wanted to try and join in everything that I could. But because my disability is unusual, I didn't know anyone with my condition when I was growing up. So if I was to take part in sports and activities, I'd really have to try and adapt and find a way that would work for me to join in. And very often I was worse or slower than all my friends. But the most important thing for me was that I could join in, that I didn't have to miss out. And so some of my favorite sports I've taken part in were things like running, football, table tennis. I had to go at rugby once, actually. I couldn't really catch the ball, couldn't get up off the floor, but I think apart from that, I was okay. And swimming. Swimming was probably one of my favorite sports. And when I was 8 years old, I started having swimming lessons at school. And in my first swimming lesson, my swimming teacher put a life jacket on me, and he came in the shallow end of the pool with me. And he said to me, I want to see if you can start swimming. Now, my disability affects my whole body, so I've got very limited use of my arms and my legs. So, for example, I can't lift my arms any higher than that to actually keep them in the air. I can swing them, but there's no muscle strength in my arms to actually keep them in the air. They just drop straight back down. But because I had some movement in my arms, it meant I could swim slowly in the water. And so at the end of that first lesson, my swimming teacher said to me, I'm going to take your life jacket off now. Go and swim down to the deep end. And with that being my first swimming lesson, it was a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And it took me a couple of minutes, but I made it to the deep end. Then a few weeks after that, he wanted to really sort of push me outside of my comfort zone, and he wanted to teach me how to dive into the pool at the deep end. And most people obviously dive into the pool using their hands first. But I can't keep my hands in the air. They just drop straight back down. So he showed me a different way that he thought would work for me. Where if you imagine I had to stand at the side of the pool, I had to fall forwards, head first, into the water. And as I was underwater, I had to turn and come out of the water on my back like that. And I remember feeling very scared about it. I thought, well, what if I can't turn when I'm underwater? What if I get stuck upside down? And I'd be standing at the side of the pool for 15 or 20 minutes actually trying to have the courage to dive in. And I remember one time my teacher was so fed up with waiting for me, he just came along and pushed me in. But for me, I'm just so glad that he made me do all this because it has really opened up so many opportunities for me. And before I carry on with my story, I don't want any of this to sound like, look what I can do, but it's just to show you the miracle that I believe that God has performed in my life, bearing in mind what the pastor prayed as a baby. So as I grew up, I was able to progress with my swimming. And when I was in secondary school, I would have been age around 13 or 14 years old, I managed to get my 800-meter swimming badge. And then when I was in my early 20s, I would swim a mile non-stop each week. And I'm always looking for new challenges, really to push the boundaries of my disability, because I don't want my disability to stop me from leading as normal life as possible. I want to take everything on as a challenge, and let's see if I can do it. So back in 2014, I heard about the Sport Relief Swimathon, and they had 3 distances on offer. And I thought I'd really like to attempt the middle distance, which is a 2.5 kilometre swim, which is equivalent to just over 1.5 miles. So that's basically half a mile further than I'd ever swum in one go before. And I trained for it over a couple of months, and I was able to complete the distance fairly easily on the day. So in 2017, I thought I'd really like to attempt the longest distance that they offer. And it was a 5-kilometre swim, which is just over 3 miles. And if you take your average leisure centre swimming pool, which is 25 metres long, it was 200 lengths of the pool. Now, I knew it would be a real challenge for me doing this swim because it was such a long way. But just the very fact I've got that movement in my arms, which means I can swim slowly in the water, I knew that if I really worked hard, if I put lots of effort, lots of training in, I knew it would be possible, just the very fact that I could swim. And I did months and months of training, probably a good 6 months. And on the day, I managed to complete the 5 kilometres in about 5.5 hours, which is obviously much slower than it would be for an able-bodied person because of the limited range of movement and weak muscles I've got in my arms and my legs. But then, having completed that 5-kilometre swim, someone contacted me because he knew I was into sports and into challenges. And he told me about a triathlon taking place. And it was the first of its kind in the country, especially for disabled people like me to take part. And I thought I would absolutely love to give this a go because I've always enjoyed watching triathlons on television and watching the Brownlee brothers compete. And I thought this is such a great opportunity for me to try it myself. And so because I knew I wasn't very fast, but I've got good endurance, I thought let's just enter the longest distance that they offer just to see if I can complete it. And it was a 750-metre swim in a lake, which you'll see on video in just a minute. Then it was a 20-kilometre cycle. Now, you might look at me and think, how do I ride a bike? And I've got very limited bend in my knees. So just where you are, if you take a look at my left knee, I'm going to balance just to demonstrate. Okay, so that is as far as my left knee bends. So it's not enough to turn the pedals on a normal bike. So I would ride a hand cycle, which again you'll see on video in just a minute. And then after the 20-kilometre hand cycle, it was a 5-kilometre run. But I've had major ankle problems in the past, so I'm not supposed to run anymore because it would just make them bad again. But I'm still allowed to walk as far as I like. So I thought, well, if I can swim, if I can hand cycle, if I can walk, let's train for it. Let's see if I can complete the distance. And to cut a long story short, I managed to finish the triathlon in 2017, 2018, and 2019. And each time it took me over 4 hours. Then in 2020 and 2021, it was cancelled because of the COVID situation. But last year, I found out that I was able to get a new three-wheeler bike adapted with a much shorter pedal rotation, which means I've got just enough bend in my legs to turn the pedals. So I got this new bike, this new three-wheeler bike in May last year. And it was the first time I could pedal with my legs since I was 7 years old. And I trained for the triathlon again over the summer. And because I was able to pedal with my legs, which are stronger than my arms, it made me quite a bit faster. So I managed to beat my time last year by 22 minutes. And then I did this triathlon again in August, 2 months ago. And again, I was able to beat my time by another 9 minutes. And I'm going to see if I can beat it again next year. But every year I do it, I'm getting older as well. So we'll see. We'll see. Now, I drive a car, which has been specially adapted for me. So, has anyone ever seen a car without a steering wheel before? because I actually steer my car with handlebars, just like riding a bike. I can manage the pedals with my right foot, and for the horn, the windscreen wipers, the lights, the indicators, it's very different in my car because I've got a head control, and there's a button on my headrest. So, for example, if I want to turn left, I hold the button down for 2 bleeps like this. Bleep, bleep, and off. Or if I want to indicate to turn right, I hold it down for 3 bleeps. Bleep, 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 and off. And having this car adapted for me, it just gives me all the independence that I need. Because I actually regularly speak in churches, schools, prisons, anywhere where I get invited. And I travel all over the country. And it just means I can get in the car and drive myself to wherever I need to go, and I don't need anyone else to take me. So I'm now going to show a short video. This video just demonstrates how I've adapted to take part in some of these sports and activities. Thank you.
Through you, I can do anything. I can do all things, 'cause it's you who gives me strength. Nothing is impossible. Through you, blind eyes are open. Strongholds are broken. I am living by faith. Nothing is impossible.
Thank you very much, everyone. So if any of you want to see that video again, you can just find it on YouTube by typing my name, which is Bart Gee. If you type that into the YouTube search, you'll find that video and many other videos on my channel. But anyway, so basically, When I was, it would have been back in 2014, I was invited to go and share my story at Bristol Brunel Academy, which is a secondary school in Bristol. And at the time, I really wasn't used to talking in front of people at all. And I'd be really nervous about getting up in front of people. But I was invited just to go and share my story and play the piano at the end. And so I agreed to go. And I was expecting I was just going to be speaking to one class. But when I arrived, I found out I was going to be taking 3 assemblies to the whole of Year 9, and then the whole of Year 8, and then the whole of Year 7, to a total of around 650 children. And because I wasn't used to talking in front of people at the time, I thought, help, because I was that nervous about it. But that day was really quite significant for me because basically I had children queuing up, wanting to ask me questions and wanting to see me play the piano at the end of each session, wanted to see me play the piano close up. But there were 2 things that really stood out to me that day. There was a boy in Year 8, and he came up to me, and all he said quietly was, "Sir, I think you're amazing." And I didn't think too much of it until later that evening, the teacher who invited me in messaged me to thank me for coming in, but also said in the message that she heard that boy say that and couldn't believe it because he was the worst behaved in the year and was on report. So she said my story had a real impact on him. And then after the year 7 assembly, there was a girl who came up to me, and she said that when I played the piano at the end, she started to cry, and it's because her mum had some sort of disability and basically given up trying to cope with it. And she said she was going to really go home and tell her mum all about me and really try and motivate her. And it occurred to me that day that as a child, I would actually pray for healing. But it occurred to me, what if God could use me through my disability, through the difficulty of my situation? And I actually didn't do anything really for quite a while after that. But about 18 months later, it was November 2015, I was invited to go and share my story at a church in Birmingham where I knew the pastor. She just invited me out of the blue. So I agreed to go there. And then having seen on Facebook that I was going there, an old school friend said, could I go to her school in London? So I went to her school in London. And then I really felt, this is it, this is what I should be doing. And so I set up my website, and I prayed to God that if this is the right thing for me to do, that he would open up opportunities for me to go and share my story. And to start with, it was pretty slow because no one had heard of me, basically. But it gradually accelerated, so that in 2019, I actually counted. I had 148 bookings through the year, which was just amazing. And I really see my disability as an opportunity now to share my Christian faith with others. You know, where if I didn't have my disability, I wouldn't necessarily get these opportunities to go into schools. And you probably would have seen in the middle of that video that I just showed that the clip where I was playing the drums. That was a school assembly out in India. There were 1,200 children in that assembly, and basically it was a Christian school, but there were children there who were also from non-Christian backgrounds. And I was asked at the end to open it up to see if anyone wanted to invite Jesus into their hearts. And I was amazed at the response. I couldn't see all the way back clearly because there was sunlight at the back, but just in the front section of about 300 children, 20 responded, which was just amazing. So I actually really think now that you know, I actually think basically, you know, if I was able-bodied, would I be any happier as a person? I don't think I would be, because I really believe that God is actually able to use me through my disability. And so I'd really encourage you that when we face difficulties in our lives, what if God could use you through your difficult situation? But anyway, going back very briefly to when I was a baby, the second thing that the pastor prayed was that one day I'd be able to play the organ like my dad. And Dad played the organ at church every week, and being able-bodied, he'd play using both hands and all of his fingers. But also when I was a baby, when the doctors gave the bleak outlook to my parents, Mum asked the doctor with just that little bit of hope, because Dad plays the piano and the organ, and obviously the piano is similar to play with your hands, Mum asked if there's ever any chance of me being able to play. And the doctor said, looking at my hands as they were as a baby, there's just no chance whatsoever. There was even doubt that I would have the strength to press down a key. But when I was 5 years old, we already had a piano at home, which Dad would play regularly in the evenings. And because he's a very good musician, I would watch him play, and it just really inspired me. And I thought I would absolutely love to be able to play like him. And so I asked my parents if I could start having piano lessons. And although they were told that there'd be absolutely no chance and that I may never have the strength to press down a key, they could see that I really wanted to try. And so they thought, well, let's just set up a piano lesson and see how I get on. And so in my first piano lesson, it was a matter of did I have the strength to press down a key? Oh, I haven't got any volume at the moment. Brilliant. Thank you. I could with my right hand, and I could with my left hand. So again, just the very fact I had that strength to press down the key in both hands meant that it was always going to be a real challenge for me to get myself going on the piano, but it was just possible. And so I then had to really work with my piano teacher to see how I'd be able to progress, work out which fingers I'd be able to use when I play. And I still can't use all my fingers now because some of them in particular are very, very weak. So I've really had to try and adapt and find a way that works for me to play. And from a young age, as soon as I started to play, I really wanted to try and get to a standard where I could play in church, basically leading worship without my playing being a distraction. And what I mean by that is that when I was growing up, as I was learning, I would have the tendency to hit down wrong notes as well as the notes I intended to play, just because of my limited fingering, that I've got my limited movement in my fingers. But anyway, now I actually play at church regularly, and rather than going into any more detail, it would be great just invite Richard and please come up as well, thank you. And then we're going to lead the song Goodness of God, and please do stand up and join in as we sing. It's going to be a little bit of a different accompaniment, okay?
Mercy never fails me, but all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing all the goodness of God. Times you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful.
running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now, I'll give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now, I'll give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing all the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing all the goodness of God, all the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing all the goodness of God.